Hi, everybody. My name is Steph. I am the global leader for the solution architecture team for media, entertainment, games, and sports for AWS. And I'm super excited today to be here to talk with these great gentlemen. We're going to talk a little bit about the streaming media landscape. Today we stand at the intersection of technology and entertainment, and the streaming industry is like more dynamic than ever. AWS sees the convergence being a defining trend that will shape our entertainment world over this next couple of years. So you guys may wonder what that means, right? We've been undergoing this vast transformation in entertainment, and this is fueled by a bunch of generational shifts in content consumption, along with new tech advancements. So we are already seeing a lot of our customers embarking on new ventures. So things like venue sports. Hopefully some of you guys have heard about this. This is the collaboration between Disney, Fox, and WBD. And they're also focusing on interactive and live experiences. We've seen broadcasters embracing connected televisions and social media platforms, right? We've seen social media platforms embrace, like X and TikTok, embracing longer form content. Companies are experimenting with new forms of IP monetization. So if you look at and you think about Disney's investment in Epic and $1.5 billion that they've just invested into Epic, they're bringing in their IP and their characters like Deadpool, right? And then they turn around and they start streaming their D23 conference into the game. So it's an amazing time to be as part of this streaming world, right? So we've seen this explosion of platforms. We've got an ever-growing array of content and a shift in viewing habits, revolutionizing our media consumption. So today I'm lucky to have Kiel and Michael here to dig into the topics around customer engagement as well as monetization in streaming TV. So I am going to first ask each of you to introduce yourselves, tell the audience a little bit about who you are, your company, and what your role is. So Kiel.
Yeah, thank you. So is this two? I don't.
No.
So thank you everybody for having us. So I'm Kiel Fox. I know it says Director of Sports Marketing. I'm the head of our sports market here at Amagi. I just want to make sure I clarify that because I don't want to try to take any credit from our marketing people. Otherwise, I think they will shiv me if I try to take credit for their work. But anyway, I'm part of Amagi. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with who Amagi is. I always like to say we're kind of the largest media technology company in the world that nobody has ever really heard about, or you probably have not heard about. We're really known for our work in the fast space. So if you look at the company, I think we're really kind of broken down into three very kind of specific verticals. The move portion, which is essentially our cloud-based automation and playout. I think, traditionally that market has been fast. That's really where we saw a massive explosion in our business. We have, I think on the fast side, over 2,000 channels that we originate and distribute out today. Roughly almost 70% of the market is done via Amagi today. And then on the middle of that is the move side where we do all of our distribution. So we can distribute out, however you need to, Zixi, SRT, fiber, satellite, whatever it is, whatever it requires for us to deliver your channel to the right platform that you need to distribute to. We can manage that. And then the most important and kind of what we'll talk about a little bit here later is the monetization piece, because I think as everybody knows, this is probably one of the biggest issues kind of facing this space today is improving monetization. And I think that's where, we're uniquely positioned with the different solutions that we have to kind of, help your business from there.
Awesome. Michael, we're going to turn to you.
Thank you. Michael Shewchenko from Anthem Sports and Entertainment. I'm going to be a little bit of a different view here because you're talking about, Epic Games and billion-dollar transactions. We operate at a smaller level, but we're a little unique. We operate everything from linear channels. We have numerous fast channels that we're running. We also own things like a professional wrestling promotion, top to tail. We have a movie distribution company as well. So I think maybe I can provide some insights that cover what a lot of different people are looking at. Is I'm not really in one straight business. My background is really simple. I started in TV like a lot of folks here. And when I saw the consumption patterns changing in my friends, I moved on to the digital side of things. Plain and simple, follow the customer, which is probably something I'm going to say about 20 times during this. But thank God I found that early because I probably would not be in this business anymore if I didn't switch to the digital side.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that. So I'm going to ask this question to both of you, right? So there's dozens and maybe hundreds of streaming services globally, right? There's thousands of streaming channels. So what are the key challenges streaming TV providers face in attracting and retaining customers in today's highly competitive landscape?
Well, can I start?
You can start, Mike.
All right. Number one, from my perspective, if you're an operator of any sort of content, finding good partners. It's very easy when your CFO is on your back to chase dollars and find the cheapest deals. Without a doubt, that is the dumbest strategy. I don't have scale, I don't have resources. If you're that size company, you need to find partners who are going to help you. You need to get into the space. You need to operate. You cannot be worrying about customer calls, dealing with support. You can't be worried about things just not working if you don't have the resources. And, the honest thing is we look at the media market right now, a lot of companies are downsizing. It's a tough time. So if I have one advice when you're starting out, you really got to spend the time to find good partners. And on top of that, the second thing is you got to spend the time to understand your customers. And I don't mean from a straight consumption point of view. You have a great show, you have a great product. That's fantastic. My first step would be going into the market, and I'm completely across the scope of things and finding out where are your customers, where are the people who like your content, and spend time there. That can be across social. That could literally be in a bar. You're going to get to the point where you're selling and monetizing in media, but know your customer, find good partners, and you'll increase your chances.
Awesome. I'm going to ask the same for you, Kyle.
Yeah, no, and I think kind of building on what Michael had said there, I think, for me, a lot of that comes back to, understanding the viewer and really building a strategy around that, understanding what the consumption habits across the board, from viewers are different, depending on the type of media and depending on the type of way that you're actually getting your content out to them. I mean, I'll say kind of uniquely for myself when I look at sports, I'm an old school sports viewer. I want to watch it on a big screen. I want to have my beer and I want to be left alone. I don't really want a whole lot of other stuff to distract me, I guess is a good way to put it. However, if I look at my kids, if I look at a lot of the younger viewers out there, that is a completely different experience, right? And so I think you need to really build a strategy around what type of viewer are you trying to attract with the solution that you're going to deliver. And I think one unique thing, especially in this digital linear space today, and leveraging the ability to use cloud-based playout and other things, is that it's a lot more cost effective to actually build out, pop-up channels or additional channels to provide, different experiences for your viewer. So again, if I'm going to, target a younger demographic, I'm probably, they're not going to be as interested in watching the long form game. I think they're going to be a lot more interested in, data driven aspects. They're going to be a lot more interested in real time highlights. They're going to be a lot more interested in interactivity, gamification, gambling, things like that. So I think, you really, as you kind of build the strategy out, and going back to Mike's point, looking for a partner that actually gives you the flexibility and the scalability to really execute on the strategy that you put together to go after your viewer.
Well, let's talk about leveraging that partnership a little bit, since Michael brought it up, and what integrations and platforms and services enhance a streaming TV provider's offerings and reach new audiences when they use partners.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there is a lot of things that you have to look at, regarding that. I mean, I think it comes down to, again, you're going to need to look at the different type of experience that you're providing, whether it's on a big screen or if it's on a, O&O, like a mobile device, things like that. I mean, I think we're seeing, a massive rise and, in that I don't want to call it second screen, because it's not, in my opinion, really a second screen. It's more of that interactivity. But, there are a lot of different apps out there, that give you the ability to kind of build a more social interaction with a user and kind of augment the experience that they're going to be getting on maybe a larger screen. I think Yes Network has done a wonderful job of that. If you look at, the way that their mobile app has really been built around, driving the user to come in and use the application, and kind of driving an experience that rewards the user for actually, interacting with their content, watching games, doing things like that. But I think, it also takes another aspect where if you look at, playing towards more of a larger screen, especially as we move towards the CTV market right now, I think this space was always really kind of looked at as a place where I could just take a lot of my secondary content. I didn't have to, to provide as well of a produced experience and things like that. I can just throw it out there and viewers will come. I think we're seeing that change dramatically. The whole concept of, the CTV landscape being a place where you can use underproduced content that's going away. So you need to leverage partners out there that can give your viewers an experience like they would get on a traditional linear broadcast. Give them the graphics capabilities. Leverage partners. Monetization is something we should probably dive into at some point, where you look at ways that you can, use sponsored spots, things like that to increase your overall monetization capabilities. Because I think, number one, you have to really look at how am I attracting the right viewer based off of the right screen experience that I'm kind of building for them. And then number two, programmatic is probably not going to be the only way that you're going to be able to really build a financially viable channel. So how can I leverage partners that give me graphics capabilities to, integrate gaming, integrate shopification, integrate, sponsored spots?
I think Kyle touched on two things that are really relevant here for me. In my world, we have TNA wrestling, which is pro wrestling. You can say what you want. Fun business. On the other side,
it's all real, right?
All real is absolutely scripted. Everybody knows that. On the other side, we have Invicta, which is a women's combat sports league. So, incredible athletes. When we're looking at things like this, I have two very different paths. You would think they're kind of similar when we're thinking of enhanced experiences. But for the Invicta people and the audience that's watching, they want something immediate. So we look at things like adding biometrics, see how hard they're punching, checking the heart rates of the athlete. It's all about, that live in the moment. And the audience, whether they're on a second screen, whether they're watching, they like to watch on a big screen and they like to participate in second screen, it's all immediate. Now, pro wrestling, it's very different. You would think it's immediate because people are watching the matches. What we've learned is people like to watch and then they like to go and talk about what they saw because it's entertainment and they want to react in a different way because what I find, our audiences want to go back and they want to demonstrate that they know what's going on. Pro wrestling, you understand, it's like, I know why this happened. This is what's going to happen next. This match is setting up that match. They can't do that while they're actually watching the match because they really want to think about it. So we thought at first we would want a bunch of real-time overlays and, some stuff that's happening on screen. It's not necessarily going to work in that case. So I'll loop this back to the partner piece to be a good panelist. You need to find partners that you can do that with because in some cases, someone's going to offer you, we can give you real time, whether that's data, analytics, overlays, whatever it is. That's fantastic. Just make sure that's what your audience wants.
Right. Well, and so actually it digs into my next question, which was for you anyway. So you've got this vast library of content, right? So, the effective strategies that you're using to reduce churn and improve your customer lifetime value in context and streaming TV services. So I think you just mentioned a few there, but are there others?
I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the data you get out the back end. And I'll take a shot at partners here. One of our biggest challenges, especially in the fast space, is getting data from the platforms back.
Right.
The obligation from us is keep pumping out content, leverage our library, curate some great content. That takes a lot of effort. That's a lot of cost. And when the only thing I get back is like a CSV 1 month on the month, here's your revenue, it's very hard for us to plan.
Right.
So that's a real challenge. I'd love to know CPMs, viewership, times of viewership, and I know that data exists. So some of the platforms give you that. A lot of them don't. And that's a huge challenge for us because content, like everybody in this room knows, is your number one cost item every single time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna turn it back to you here for a second, because I do want to jump into monetization, in a second. But content streaming is on a bevy of devices, right? From your pocket to the wall TV to event venues. I'd love for you to talk about a couple challenges and opportunities that presents in the rise of like connected TV and that shift towards like viewing on these big screens or little screens. Like what is that doing for you from a partner type perspective? Yeah,
good question. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, I'm going to take this back to kind of like chasing the viewer, understanding the viewer. Because again, I think, in a lot of cases, you really have to kind of build that strategy. You really have to look for a partner that can effectively, meet that strategy depending on, what screen that you're going to end up, kind of delivering to. But I think, again, in a lot of ways, you look at a lot of discoverability. That's a massive issue, especially as we look at the amount of platforms and stuff like that that are available today. And overall, I think the experience from a user can vary greatly across the different platforms. But in some ways, I kind of look at that as like it's actually a positive when you have that many options as far as the amount of different platforms that you're going to, because I think when we get this question a lot, if I start distributing my content out to 5, 10, 15 different platforms, am I essentially cannibalizing the viewers that I have on platform A or platform B? And I think the one thing that our data and some of the industry data is finding is that that's not the case at all. In most cases, it's like you really should focus on getting as much scale as you really can, because, regardless of the type of device that you're sitting to or the type of platform that you're using traditionally, or what we're really finding is that you're finding a whole new set of user, because the viewers are really choosing the platforms that they want to use, and then they are specifically sticking to that. So I'll say this for myself, I have Roku, I have Samsung. I typically find myself using only one platform. I don't really jump from multiple different places to another. So yeah, I mean, I think, in a lot of cases, it comes down to really building up.
So you don't jump from one to another. I'm curious if you see that in the data and the analytics that you get, or are your users daytime doing one thing, in the evening doing another, on the commute doing another. Like, how are you using data and analytics and AI/ML to leverage this knowledge, these learnings, and figuring out what you're doing to kind of promote the right things to your audience?
That's a tough question. Thank you. I just want to quickly loop back to what Kyle said. I want to reinforce first, without a doubt, more platforms will get more viewers. We went through something earlier this year. TNA has a show on Access TV. There's Thursday night, 8 o'clock. We have an owned and operated SVOD service for TNA. It was a fight of all fights to be able to simulcast those two at 8 o'clock. The linear people on Access TV were telling us, you're going to kill our ratings. And we're going, well, we need to provide value to subscribers who aren't watching linear TV. We won the battle. Everything's simulcast. Everyone's numbers are up. And I've never, ever seen in my life, and I've done a lot of these different jobs, I've never seen where you put content out on multiple platforms where it doesn't rise the tide.
Rise all boats.
If I can't jump in on that too, I mean, I think, one thing that the data is really starting to show is you really need to start embracing the whole digital linear space and the concept, especially traditional sports media. The traditional linear, reach, the traditional linear viewership is obviously continuing to decline, right, across the board. And it's really interesting as you start to kind of look at the data, because I think traditionally people like to think, well, if I move to the digital linear space, am I just capturing a lot of my old broadcast viewers like coming over here? And I think the data suggests no, you're not. I mean, a lot of the people that are still sticking to linear broadcast, that's the way that they're consuming the content. Yes, you are capturing some of your market that's moving into digital linear, but it's also giving you a whole new way to catch new viewership that you are not going to ever catch if you are not in this space, especially from a younger perspective. I mean, my kids have no concept of what it is to watch.
What's appointment viewing?
Exactly.
I have no idea what that means, Mom.
They're always really confused when they're like, hold on, can you go back? And I'm like, no, I can't, sorry. Yeah. But I think like that's something we really need to be focusing on right now, is the fact that this is it's kind of, I would say maybe a pivotal, I don't know if that's a strong word, to use right now, but I think it's very important to really be building in a digital linear strategy into, how you're going to continue to capture market, how you're going to continue to grow your business, especially if you're, like a smaller, like upstart league, if you've got, less distribution than say like an NFL or a NBA or somebody like that.
I think what's also really interesting, the different platforms give you different data that you need to interpret in a different manner. Linear TV data is, to be honest, quite terrible, right? It's all based on groups and demos. And if you go completely the other side, something that we own and operate, my data is amazing, right? I know exactly who you are, where you live, your credit card number, all the good stuff.
Your behavior, your viewing habits.
Exactly, your viewing habits, like what platforms you logged on, and in between, the fast, those opportunities you get data back. So it's not only important that you're looking at the data, but you really have to interpret it a certain way. You don't interpret TV data, that viewer, in the same way that I look at who my fast viewer is, whom I owned and operated, to my social, who's reaching out to us on social in that club. So I don't think there's a straight answer. You just spend a lot of time in the data, and you have to look at, because someone's consumption pattern on social, be it platform, device, time of day, it's very different than what it is on fast. And it doesn't mean they're attacking each other. It doesn't mean you're cannibalizing. It's just, guess what? Someone's consuming your content while they're sitting on the train going to work.
Right.
They can only do that on their phone.
And how are you using that data then to optimize that monetization strategy that we didn't dig into yet?
Well, sorry, I totally evaded that question earlier. It's how you move people down the funnel. Like for us, and for everybody in this space, how do you get people?
Is it ads, right? Subscriptions, ads.
Subscription ad. So if someone's engaging with social and we know roughly the hours and the times and the platforms, we feed them the content to get down the funnel. We're not going to sell you anything on social. We could, like maybe some merchandise, but that's an outlier. However, I want you to engage with the brand. If you like the brand and we're showing you value, maybe you'll go in the office and you'll flick on the fast channel that's sitting in the office all day, and so on. And you keep moving them down the funnel to hopefully someone comes to an event and buys a ticket and parks their bum in the seat.
Exactly. You were going to say something, so I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, not at all. I mean, I think what's interesting too, that kind of looking at the data, we had a customer last year that, they wanted to, it was a major league that they were looking at, how do we end up engaging with some of our younger, audiences for some of our sub leagues, right? And they looked at it and they were like, number one, we don't have enough content. The data says that our viewers don't have the attention span that they're going to want to have a 24/7 linear channel. So the way that they approached it, using the data and figuring out kind of the best way that they could lower their costs but increase their revenue, was with the concept of, we're going to do a pop-up channel. And that's one of the great things I think that this space really kind of offers that, traditional linear doesn't really offer. It gave them the ability to set up a channel that ran essentially for 48 hours, 40 of which was really about, user engagement, building that, whole relationship with their viewers, player profiles, things like that. And then the other 8 hours was live games. And then once that ended, that 48-hour cycle ended, the channel stood down, waited for another week, and then once it was time again for the live games, it popped back up. But I think that's one of the things that, is really great about, this space, is that it gives you the ability, using the data, to be a lot more flexible in how you kind of engage with your viewer and build out completely new strategies, for getting your content out there.
I haven't asked the people at Amagi about this yet, but pop-up is a great idea. We have a movie distribution company, so we have a tremendous amount of titles, and one of the things we've been brainstorming about is, can we literally generate a pop-up movie channel? Because what we saw from the data, with all the channels that we do have, certain channels do really well certain times of year what we're programming. Classic stuff like Christmas in July, Halloween and horror, things like that. But it's become cost prohibitive to run 5 channels. So can we then turn that into one where we're popping it up? So depending on seasonally, can we turn this into, we're getting into Halloween. Could this be the time that the channel turns into horror? How do we pop it up? How do we work with someone like Amagi for us then to get that message out across the platform so they can support us on the marketing side? You're trying to look at new and different ways of doing it, instead of just, here's the old channel, let's program it the way we think it's going to work. Let's actually make the channel dynamic and go to the viewer and give them, hey, like in your face, this is what's happening right now. We know you like to consume this stuff at this time of year, so we're going to throw it at you, as opposed to waiting for you to come and find it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. We've got about 3.5 minutes left for me to ask about where you see the landscape evolving to in the next 5 years, right? And what strategies are going to be critical for success in this rapidly changing environment. So I'll let either one of you start. Go ahead, Kyle.
All right. I guess this is a time, since Michael's pointing to me, that I throw it back over to him and tell him to start. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about kind of early on in this. I think it's really going to be about building a much more personal experience. And I think it's really going to be about, creating multiple different, ways, leveraging the whole digital linear space to create an experience that's unique based off of the type of the viewer, the demographic that you're really going after. I think to that point, I think you're going to see a lot more, pop-up type channels where you're able to, to leverage that kind of cost at scale, to get your content out to multiple different platforms. I think you're going to see a lot more personalization to come across. I mean, I know that's a big piece, especially as we talked about, graphics and working with different customers that are, trying to leverage, data or different social apps, things like that. But I also think it's really going to vary depending on what sort of a screen that you're really building the experience for. I don't think you can really build, a single experience that's going to hit, number one, everybody. And then number two, I really don't think you're going to build an experience that's going to work, whether, from a big screen versus, a small screen. And then I think, I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but I think another piece of that is I think the monetization is going to change. I mean, I know right now, especially if we look at the fast space, which is so heavy programmatic, I think that is going to be changing quickly. And I think it has to, right? I think we're going to have to get to a point where, where especially as, live sports becomes a more prominent part, of the ecosystem. I think everybody is looking for those ways as my, traditional linear broadcast dollars go down. How do I offset that? In a new way. And so I think you're going to see inevitably the platforms, everybody else is going to have to kind of open up and allow direct sales as well as sponsored spots and shopification, other things within the platforms.
I'll start on the business side of things. We, as an industry, we absolutely need to consolidate. Like it's impossible. Every single ad platform or ad tech that's out there, no joke, there's like 150 emails in my inbox every week. It's like, you got to be on this. It's impossible to keep up, and it's not effective. There's too much going on. And I think we've lost sight of number one, like, what are we delivering to the customer? What's the customer want? Everyone right now is so worried about survival in this space that we're kind of tending to look at balance sheets, and we're making cuts, and we see that. And I'm really worried, honestly, like about how we're delivering to the customer, because ultimately, everything we've talked about, what do the customers want? What are they watching? Where are they watching? That's all that matters. That's how you'll generate revenue. But like, we do it to ourselves by being such a complicated industry. So I think we will see consolidation, without a doubt. But I also think that there's a huge plus side. Just stay focused on the customer, deliver good content. You've got a chance coming out that side.
I love the focus on the customer. At AWS, we have a leadership principle called customer obsession. And so that is our number one leadership principle at the company. I want to say thank you to you both. Amazing. Kyle, Michael, I appreciate it. I hope the rest of you enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of NAB.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.